Good morning, everyone. In case you don't know me, my name is Anthony Clerkin. I'm the youth director here at Bethesda Covenant Church, and apparently I am speaking from a cave right now. Does anyone else hear that echo? That's great. All right, they're going to get that for me. That was great. So let's see. To get started this morning, I just want to see kind of where we're at. If everyone who is willing and able could stand. Let's just go with able. Stand up for me. Forget about the willing part. I know it's early Sunday morning. Let's see. Okay, wonderful. And what I want to see here is if you have been attending this church for more than 3 years, stay standing. So less than 3 years, have a seat. All right. How about, I've been here 6. How many of you have been here longer than 6? If you haven't been here longer than 6 years, have a seat. Okay. Oh, we're narrowing them down a lot faster in this service than the last one. 82 years was the last service. That was awesome. I didn't see that coming. 15 years. Have a seat if you've been here less than 15. Less than 20? Have a seat. Robbie's not even 20 years old, so I know that's got him. Let's see. Less than 30 years if you've been here, have a seat. Really? Okay. 40? Bob and Vi, that is cheating. Everybody else just sit down. I forgot Bob and Vi were here this morning. Bob and Vi, how long have you guys been here? 85 years. Give them a round of applause. You guys sit down. Oh my goodness. 85 years at one church. Whew. How many grandkids you guys got? Oh my goodness, 8 great grand. Oh my gosh, and you've got one here. Oh my, that is awesome. This morning we're talking about church. And believe it or not, that is a dangerous topic to talk about in church. And yeah, I see some head nods. Some guys are like, yeah, so you better be careful. That's the beauty of not being the senior pastor, is that I can bring some messages that he couldn't bring, and you all are like, if you don't like it, you're like, oh, he's that crazy youth guy. That's fine. So good. So I'm going to try and use that for all it's worth this morning. And I want to make sure that I preface this talk by telling you that I love the church. The church globally instituted by Jesus Christ, initially led by the apostles, then disciples, and on through the centuries. I think, despite some hiccups here and there, I think we're doing a fine job of following what Jesus meant for us to do in the church. And I specifically love this church. Bethesda Covenant Church. Man, Bethesda Evangelical Covenant Church, when you've been around as long as some folks. Man, I love this place. I mean, I live here, so I live in the back of the parking lot. That's my house there. And I'm here all the time, and I love being a member of this church. I love the way you all support me and love me. You've done an amazing job at that. Pastor Dave, I mean, we get to be taught by one of the greatest life application teachers that has ever preached to a church. He's amazing. And we have Pastor Dave Wood, who isn't in here in this service, but him and I are in a men's group here, Friday morning, 6:30 a.m. men. We're in that together, and man, he has taught me so many things. Pastor Dave Wood has taught me that on the one hand, God is this. But on the other, God is also that. And he's taught me that there's always going to be that tension, and there's always going to be two sides. I didn't even know that I liked to preach until I came on staff at this church. So I have learned and been taught and been so blessed here. And so I want you to know that that's the place that I'm coming from this morning. And some of the time, I'm not actually going to be talking to you, but addressing some problems that I see in the church in America and where I see it heading or where I'm scared to see it heading. And I want to give us a common language to combat some of these flaws that I see so they don't find their way here into Bethesda, and so that when we're discussing out in the world, we can discuss with people I want to give you some illustrations that'll help you with that. So to begin, I took some of my favorite verses on relationship with God, and I twisted them. I certainly did not make them better, but what I did is I took these verses out of the Bible, and I made them, I'm going to word them the way I think people hear them, as opposed to the way they're written. You'll see as I go with this. Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am in the church. How is that one supposed to go? Be still and know that I am God. Absolutely. But when you pray, go to your church. Close the doors and pray to your Father who is in the church. Then your Father who sees what is done in church will reward you. There may be some truth in there, but that's not how it's supposed to read. It's supposed to read like this. But when you pray, go to your room. Close the door and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. Again, I tell you that if two of you in church agree about anything you ask for, it will be done for you by my Father who is in church. For where 2 or 3 come together in my church, I am there with them. You see where this is going, right? I just have 1 or 2. And that one's supposed to read like this. Again, I tell you that if 2 of you on earth agree about anything you ask for, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 come together in my name, there I am with them. If you believe, you will receive whatever you ask for in church. Maybe some truth to that, but it's supposed to say if you believe, you will receive whatever you ask for in prayer. I'm afraid that we make it sometimes the Father, Son, and Holy Church. That we become too dependent on this place, on this location, as a means for building a relationship with Jesus Christ. I want you to come to church on Sunday morning expecting a miracle. I've preached on that before. I want you to show up at this place expecting an outpouring of God's Holy Spirit. I want you to expect the power of our holy God to overwhelm and overtake you at every turn. Not because you are in church, though. I want you to expect that because that is who God is and what He does. Not just here, but everywhere. Come to this place expecting to meet with God, not with the church. We're given the command to go out into all the world and make disciples. That's a big calling. And while we're out there in our little worlds, trying to make disciples, sharing what God has done in our lives, it is such great reassurance to know that we have this on Sunday morning, isn't it? To know that no matter how beat up and dragged down throughout the week we get, we can come here. We can come home. And there's people that love us and care about us here. They support us. They're our friends and our family. We know that we will be loved when we come into this place. Now, imagine you have a friend. You and this friend, you work together, or you go to school together, whichever way you spend the most time. And during the week, you're in the same office, and this friend walks by you, and maybe occasionally they'll give you I recognize you, I acknowledge you, but I don't really want to engage with you right now. Give the hey, and then eyes quick down to the work. So this friend does that day in and day out, 5 days a week, all the time. That's the extent of communication they will ever have with you when they see you in the office place. Occasionally, this friend has been known to have a glass of wine and call you up late at night and pour their life out to you. And they call you up and, oh, you're such a good friend, and yeah, I should do this and that, and oh, we're so close, and it's so good to have you as such a personal friend. And then the next morning you show up to work and you get the, oh, really? That's what we get. It's like as if the night before never happened. And once in a while, this friend even texts you. Bob and Vi, that's where you use your phone to send a message, not with voice, but with letters. Don't worry, I won't get any more technical than that. And This friend will even text you in the morning sometimes, send you a list of things as your friend that they need you to do. But then at church on Sunday morning, you come into church, and this friend is always there, always the first one to church, and you walk into church, buddy, best friend, come over here, oh man, have you guys seen this guy? This guy's my best friend, and suddenly you're their best friend, and they're showing you off to hey, have you met? Yeah, we work together. Yeah, all week long, we're in the grind, working it out together. It's great. Oh, such a blessing to me, and I called him up the other night, and we worked stuff out together. It was awesome. We're so close. Do you guys know this guy? This cool guy, best friend. Hey, get a picture of us. Get a picture of us over here. Best friends, me and this guy. On Sunday morning, that's how they act. And it's a little weird and a little twisted, right? But how many of us treat God exactly like that? How many people do we know that throughout the work week, throughout our week, we're putting God on the back burner, we're up on the shelf. We're aware, yeah, God, I know you're there, you're doing your heaven stuff, but down here on earth, I got to get this stuff done. And I don't really have time for you and all your heaven stuff. I'm sure you're doing a great job without my input. And so we just leave him there doing his thing, and we expect the same courtesy from him to leave us here doing our thing. And then every once in a while, maybe a glass of wine is involved, I don't know. We pour our lives out to God when life is really falling apart. God, I need you, and I remember the passion that my faith had when I was young, and I want that back. And the next morning we feel so good from pouring our hearts out to God that we just forget all about it. Whew, that's over. And, the next morning God's like, hey, how about that time we had? And you give him the, maybe a quick little, before you eat or something, you give him a quick little prayer or something. And every now and again, when we're feeling really holy, we get up early in the morning and we talk to God and we give him that long list of stuff that we need him to do for us, stuff we're doing that we need him to bless. And then we're on our way. It's not a relationship, right? It's not a healthy friendship, and it's not a healthy way to relate with God in any way. I was blown away last week when my friend Dan Hines, does anyone in here know Dan Hines? Great guy. He's spoken here on Good Friday before. Great friend of mine. Anyway, he taught me a couple of weeks ago that the Hebrew word for work and the Hebrew word for worship are the same word. And I looked it up. They're the exact same word. Think about how that applies to your life for a minute. So every time you're going through and reading your Old Testament, which was written in Hebrew, in case you didn't know, you could replace work and worship interchangeably back and forth, and it wouldn't change the meaning of the verse at all. Okay, so it shouldn't change the meaning of the verse at all. How does that apply day in and day out? 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, if that's your schedule, you're being paid to worship. Who or what are we worshiping? I shouldn't go there, should I? To worship God does not require us ever to find a better church. I don't think there is such a thing in Rockford, but I understand that there are different feelings on that that people have. It does require more submission. Oh, there he goes again, saying things I don't like and words I don't like. Submission. Ouch. Don't we hate that word? But that is exactly what is required for the slow and constant process of cultivating more of God's presence in our lives. How much time do you think, ladies, this is especially true for you, how much time you think you spend in the bathroom in a given week? I'm not just talking about doing what we do in the bathroom. I'm talking about the hair, the makeup, the painting, the primping, the plucking, and whatever the heck else we do in the bathroom, the showering, all of those things. How much time, fellas, you too, you can obviously tell I have a little hair gel. I see a few gentlemen out here that obviously also own a bottle of hair gel. It takes a while to get this thing perfectly straight, to make that like a plank right there. That takes some work once in a while. How much time you guys figure? What you figure 2-3 minutes a week easily? Yeah, right. All right, that's a guy. The average American, so this is men and women combined together, and I think they're lying here because it only comes down to like an hour and a half a week totaled that you spend in the bathroom. So that's fine. We figure there's some people that never shower and go to use the restroom on a tree or something. I don't know. So they're like 1 minute, and then there's people that I know that I'm not going to name their names that are in there for like 5 hours. And so that averages out to be about an hour and a half over the course of a week. Your average American spends a little less than 45 minutes a week in church. Huh. So, I think your relationship with God is a little more important than whatever you're accomplishing in the bathroom. Right? You're allowed to agree with me, disagree with me, giggle, smack me around, whatever you need to do. So clearly then, this hour that we spend together on Sunday morning cannot be the be-all and end-all of your relationship with Jesus Christ. In fact, it can't even be a major portion of it because you're not even spending as much time here as you spend in the restroom. So this place should be a very small amount of what constitutes your relationship with Jesus Christ. When I was 14, I got hired to work at a restaurant in Mount Horeb. It was called RPM's. Has anyone ever eaten at RPM's in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin? No surprise. There's no reason to ever go to Mount Horeb, Wisconsin. But it is my hometown, and so that's where I lived and where I worked. They hired me to be the dish boy at RPM's, and the owner there quickly realized that it was a much better use of my time and his money to have me out with the customers, because I was always just in back entertaining all the people, the grill guys. I'm like, hey guys, like, no, not really. I'm talking and jabberjawing. In case you didn't notice, I kind of like to talk. And I've got this talking thing down, and so I was always entertaining the help in the back, so he thought, well, let's just get him out there with the customers, and that'll probably go a lot better. And it did. I was an excellent waiter, if I may say so myself. And I remember this one family that came in. I, unfortunately, will never forget this family. They were the cutest little family. I mean, like, we're talking like tax cute here. That is cute, right? Have you seen those kids? Oh, my goodness. So they're like that cute, this little family, and they're sitting around having their meal, taking their time, and they had this little 6-year-old girl, and we kind of had a rapport, me and this little girl. We kind of go back and forth a little bit while I was helping them out, and they had dinner, and they had dessert, and the whole thing, and so they were there a while, and when they were all done, I just went over to the table, and I said, hey, thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. This was really fun. Thanks. That was great. And I still remember her mom helping her put on this little purple coat, and this little 6-year-old girl looks at me and she says, "You're the best waitress boy we ever had." And then immediately my heart was warmed, and then a cold shiver shot down my back as I heard that giggle that you all had coming from my buddies behind the counter. They heard her call me waitress boy, and to this day, 20 years later, there are people in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin that refer to me as waitress boy. Thank you for the snort, whoever did that. I really appreciate it. There's that building that RPM's was in is still there. It's in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin. The same physical building is there. It's still owned by the same person. And it's now, there's a movie rental place there now. Hollywood Video, I think it's called. Movie gallery, something, doesn't matter. And the lady who was the manager at RPM's is actually working in that video store, which is a real kick. So it's all the same, but it's not RPM's anymore. And so if you were to walk into that building that I used to work in and order a cheeseburger and a milkshake, if you walked up and said, give me a cheeseburger and a milkshake, they would laugh at you and say, hey, you're about 10 years too late for that order. Congratulations. For even remembering that this ever was a restaurant. That will come around in a minute, I promise. I hear a lot of times, too much, especially lately, too much. I've been hearing of people leaving their church family or leaving church altogether, and they always are using the same reasoning. I always hear, I'm just not being fed. Have you ever heard someone say that about their church, your church, a church? I'm just not being fed. I've got some insight for you guys. You need to lean in. Lean in. This isn't a restaurant! Pastor Dave is not Jesus. Jesus fed the 5,000, yes, but when it came his mealtime, he was crystal clear that spiritual food is to do the will of the one who sent him. Spiritual food is to work toward the completion of your purpose, your God-given purpose here on this earth. You can't do that sitting in a pew. You cannot be spiritually fed sitting here. This is not a restaurant. So stop looking to be fed. If you want to be fed, you need to get up out of the pew, when I'm done preferably. Go out into the community, feed the poor, help the downtrodden, serve someone, do something of some good value for the kingdom of heaven, and you will experience the greatest, most satisfying meal you have ever had in your life. This is not a restaurant, but it is a classroom and a banquet hall. We come here and celebrate what God is doing, not just in our own personal lives, but what God is doing in our lives together, right? We get so blessed seeing the babies come in, and we support people who had funerals, and we're just here to celebrate those blessings and those things that God is doing in our lives 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We get to sing praises to a God who has so richly blessed us. We get to listen and be taught by one of the greatest life application teachers to never walk on water. We're here to continue that process of cultivating more of God's presence in our lives. This place is not and cannot be the main thing in your spiritual life. And I tried to find a way to word what should be the main thing and what must be the main thing, and all I could find was a story. Call it the preacher in me. All I could find was a story. And it starts with once upon a time. Once upon a time, there was a hare who, boasting how he could run faster than anyone else, was forever teasing Tortoise for its slowness. Then, one day, the irate Tortoise answered back. Oh, you guys can relax. There's no, major spiritual insight here. I'll give you a little something at the end. Who do you think you are? There's no denying you're swift, but even you can be beaten. The hare squealed with laughter. Beaten in a race? By whom? Not you, surely. It's actually S-U-R-E-L-Y, but I think it's funnier if I say it like the name. I bet there's nobody in the world that can win against me. I'm so speedy, now why don't you try? Annoyed by such bragging, the tortoise accepted the challenge. A course was planned. Oh, I did that thing where I tried to make eye contact with the audience like a good communicator, and then I lost my spot. And the next day at dawn, they stood at the starting line. The hare yawned sleepily as the meek tortoise trudged slowly off. When the hare saw how painfully slow his rival was, he decided, half asleep on his feet, to have a quick nap. Take your time, he said. I'll have 40 winks and I'll catch up with that guy in no time. The hare woke with a start of fitful sleep and gazed around looking for the tortoise. But the creature was only a short distance away, having barely covered a third of the course. Breathing a sigh of relief, the hare decided that he might as well have breakfast too, and off he went to munch some cabbages he had noticed in a nearby field. But the heavy meal and the hot sun made his eyelids droop. With a careless glance at the tortoise, now halfway along the course, he decided to have another snooze before flashing past the winning post. And smiling at the thought of the look on the tortoise's face when it saw the hare speed by, he fell asleep and was soon snoring happily. The sun started to sink below the horizon, and the tortoise, who had been plodding toward the winning post since morning, was scarcely a yard from the finish. At that very point, the hare woke with a jolt. He could see the tortoise a speck in the distance, and away he dashed. He leapt and bounded at a great rate, his tongue lolling and gasping for breath. Just a little more, and he'd be the first to the finish. But the hare's last leap was just too late, for the tortoise had beaten him to the winning post. Poor hare. Tired and in disgrace, he slumped down beside the tortoise, who was silently smiling at him. "Slow and steady does it every time," he said. The main thing is not what we do for 1 hour on Sunday morning. The main thing is that you are daily making progress towards more of God's presence in your life. It's the little things that you're doing each and every day to draw nearer to the one who draws near to you. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge cloud of witnesses, we're like 170 strong this morning, we are surrounded by such a huge cloud of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. This is a great place to rest during that race. On a Sunday morning, you can come in here and just rest for a little bit. This isn't the race. This is the pep talk before the game. This is halftime rallying. This isn't your race. This isn't your Super Bowl. This isn't why you are here. God's presence is cultivated, not conjured. We seek to cultivate God's presence in our lives through spiritual practices, like giving to the poor, taking care of those who are in need, and disciplines like prayer, Bible study, and more prayer. That is cultivating more of God in our lives, not conjuring, not attempting to conjure God's presence based on our worship schedule. If you're not familiar with the word conjure, you'll hear it a lot with magicians. They conjure up a trick. It's a boom moment of excitement and power on a schedule. To cultivate God's presence in our lives requires surrender. We need to surrender our lives, our jobs, our families, and yes, even our church to the lordship of Jesus Christ. And that is a beautiful thing when it happens, especially in contrast to the gross thing that it is to try and conjure God's presence based on our schedule. We put God off, tuck him away from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and then we expect for God to come in here and knock our socks off at exactly 10:30 a.m. sharp each and every Sunday. God, I'm going to be here, and I expect you to be here, and I need that to be enough to last me through the entire rest of the week. That's sick and twisted. And it's unfortunately rampant with American Christians, I believe. The God of the universe will not be conjured to meet our whims. He is all-powerful God who sits on the throne. He is above all things, creator and sustainer of all things. And he is not subject to our schedule. And he does not change who he is or who you are to him based on a schedule, just to suit your fancy. He is a good and powerful God, the eternal one who was and is to come. We see his image in Jesus Christ, and his kingdom will know no end. Bless him. Bless him now. Not because you're in church, but because that's who he is. Right now, right where you're sitting, just close your eyes, quit looking at me. Just quit looking at me for a second. Just close your eyes. Worship him now. Say something to him. God, you are so good. You can say it out loud if it feels right. God, I love you. I want to bless your name. God, I lift you up. Tell your God how great he is. Worship him. Not because you're in church, but because he is a good God. So if the church isn't the holding place for God, and the move of his Spirit won't follow our worship schedule, then what the heck are we doing here? What's the point? there's a point, and it's powerful. The mutual uplifting and encouragement of one another based on our faith is no small thing. We cannot do this life alone. We cannot do this Christian thing alone. We cannot cultivate more of God's presence in our daily lives by ourselves. Husbands and wives, you have to work together on this. Friends and family, you have to work together on this. Church family, you have to work together on this. It's so cool to come in here and know that you're safe and that you're surrounded by those people who love you and care for you, who are worshiping the same God and saved by the same Jesus. That is awesome. This is a place with no judgments, no condemnation, just a lot of love and support. Use this time wisely, though. Writing this sermon, I had to make some life changes because I can't preach a sermon that I'm not living, or at least trying to live. And so some of you may have noticed I've probably asked some of you out for coffee or out to lunch or out to dinner this week. And I'm going to try and keep that up as we go, just as a life change sort of thing. Don't waste this time here, okay? This is the pep rally. We need to head out. We need to make time to have coffee with each other. Have a lunch break with each other. Ask each other out for breakfast. Go out and pray with one another. Support one another. Encourage one another. This is the role of the church. Not to come here and gather and meet God once a week, but to go out and to be His witness in our world. And not only that, but to support each other during the other days of the week. So if you get the opportunity, the first service is great at this. Those guys hang out together. They're retired, so I hear that doesn't count. But they hang out together, and they love on each other, and they spend time together, and that's what I want you guys to do. Nothing formal. You don't have to call it a small group. You don't even have to say, hey, dude, let's go pray together, because that's awkward. But just say, hey, you want to go out for coffee? You want to get some breakfast? And talk about the things of God. Talk about this place. Pray for people. Get to know one another as a family. Church, we need to seek first the things of God and trust that He'll provide the rest. Amen.